And some of the major stories making the rounds across the African continent. But tonight, the United States representative to the United Nations is wading into the increasing spate of military takeovers, especially in West Africa, taking on the Russian mercenary group Wagner for masterminding instability in the region. Linda Thomas-Greenfield, who is joining the United Nations Peacekeeping Ministerial Summit underway in Accra today, gave a lecture at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Center, where she reiterated the commitment of the United States government towards combating violent extremism in Africa. The 2023 United Nations Peacekeepers Ministerial underway in Accra is an important opportunity for member states to come together in a collective efforts to strengthen effectiveness of peacekeeping operations and their impact on communities they serve. The conference is also bringing together a tall list of diplomats, including United States representative to the United Nations, Linda Thomas-Greenfield, who is passionate about maintaining a peaceful world order. The American diplomat who was at the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping Training Center recounts her last experience in the West African country.
And let me say how thrilled I am to be back here in Ghana. I remember the first time I visited Ghana, 1978 it was. And in so many ways, it was a different world back then. I do know that a number of African democracies weren't born yet, including Ghana's current republic. I remember 1978 as being an incredible period of hope across Africa, but also a time of immense challenge.
But the challenges Ambassador Greenfield speaks of are re-emerging, and even more worrying is the trend of a backsliding democracy in Africa. Just this year alone, 5 West African countries experienced an attempted or a successful military takeover, with Sierra Leone being high on alert. Commenting on this trend, Linda Thomas-Greenfield cited Russian mercenary group Wagner, accusing them of derailing democratic gains made over the years.
We have worked to bolster those countries that have shown a commitment to democracy. Ghana is one of those countries. I have been extraordinarily concerned by the number of coups that we have seen happen across West Africa in the Sahel, and the impact that those coups are having. And I think they are threatening stability. They are certainly destabilizing, and they have not provided a platform for moving forward for the people of their countries. Many of these countries have decided that they will partner, as I talked about, with the Wagner group. This group has not provided security. What they do is they look for countries that are where the leadership is weak, or the leadership wants support. They provide support for leadership and not for the people. And we're seeing that happen in Mali as well as in other countries where we've seen more attacks and more killings than before they came. And I will add, they come at a price. They're not doing this for free. They're taking well-deserved money that should be used for building a country's economy, for creating jobs, for supporting people, millions of dollars a month from these countries to provide support for their leaders to stay in power longer than they should.
And then you mentioned that, some African leaders like Mali have made agreements with the Wagner group seeking to help manage the security challenges in Mali. Its leader, Wagner's leader, Prigozhin, recently died under what we would call suspicious circumstances. You know, what do you think is the future of the Wagner Group in Africa?
You know, I think countries who have gotten themselves tied up with the Wagner Group look at the current situation with Wagner and what happened to their leaders is a reason to be concerned. When Vice President Harris was here in Ghana, she announced an additional $100 million, if I'm correct, to support those efforts that will help to bolster security efforts, to help build capacity, and to support human rights and governance issues in the countries that this fund has been focused on, and Ghana is one of them.
Well, this is not the first time we're hearing of these claims. The first time was the claim raised by President Akufo-Addo. Joining us now is Mukhtar Momoni. Mukhtar, Executive Director for the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism. And of course, I must say that it was quite an insightful conversation there with Linda Thomas Greenfield, who you, of course, hosted today at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Center. But the claim about the Wagner Group, and being the fact that this is the second time we're hearing of this claim. The first, of course, stoking a lot of debates when President Akufo-Addo at the US-Africa Summit raised a similar concern. It's becoming a fact, should we say, that the activities of these groups are threatening peace and stability in the West Africa region.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, so this morning I had an incredible opportunity to moderate this interaction here, and I was very, very excited to engage on these issues of security, especially when it relates to the issues of security in West Africa. Yes, the issue of the Wagner forces in Africa, it's an issue that should concern all of us. And yes, our president spoke about it in a language that appeared to be problematic in the end, especially with our relations with our neighbors, Burkina Faso. But clearly, yes, and this morning we had similar concerns shared at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center. Clearly, what we're seeing in Africa, it should concern us because they are not here for free. They are not here because they just genuinely want to protect or secure security for us. It's for something more than that. Everybody is interested in what they can get in a partnership, and what is it that they are getting from that. They are getting what? They are getting resources, they are getting opportunities, to structure deals that favor them and stuff like that.
But that's where the risk is, isn't it?
Of course, exactly.
The fact that this is now being commercialized. And as the president claimed, some individuals going in for mining concessions, the same Wagner Group, the claim that they are working with other, insurgent groups just to destabilize a constitutionally elected government. We've seen the events in Sierra Leone, for instance. Do you feel that increasingly this group is spreading radicalism, if we should point it that way, across the sub-region?
Clearly, you can see that they are attracted to a certain type of government within, the space. If you ask yourself, what are the chances that a Wagner or Russia were to have that kind of presence here? What are the chances that it would be possible compared to if they were to do same in Niger or Mali, as we're seeing? Clearly, if you have a very strong democratic system, it would not provide space for that to happen. And so we're seeing their presence here very troubling. In any case, any partnership we have in regions like, places like Burkina Faso, even in Sierra Leone and other places that have challenges of democracy, there are challenges of security, we should see them participate strongly in helping, stabilize those countries. We should see them in terms of the security programs they engage in, the governance programs, and the things that need to fix. Now, we need to fix to be able to get them, back to stability. We are not seeing that in these spaces. So that should worry all of us. And I speak in this context in a, quite generalized way because we don't have enough data in terms of what exactly it is that they are doing, except to say, the episodic comment about, what it is that they're doing. Example, in Burkina Faso, they are commercializing the military engagement in there. They're looking to exchange that with resources. And these countries have huge resources. We just saw what happened, after the exit of the situation in Niger and what they could do with their own resources if they were to apply them,
and also the fears the experts raise about a possible spillover. Ghana has been described as a beacon of democracy in Africa. We're close to, a neighboring country that's dealing with the Wagner group. That's where many say the funding, for instance, additional funding being pledged by the United States government will be very much resourceful. How so?
Sure, of course. When we look at the threats that we're dealing with, we're looking at it from both internal and external sources. But most people's preoccupation is from external sources. So we're focused so much on the borders, the border security. How do we build a very robust border security system that allows the desirable elements to be in or out of this space? How do we ensure that we build enough capacity, robust system, in a buffer that allows us to build resilience against external sources of the threat? And that is important to ensure that we prevent the spillover, from happening to us. At the same time, we're building communities, border communities, in terms of their resilience, in terms of how they can participate in this. And so that kind of funding can be used to build that. And we need that. Our borders are porous, not only in the physical sense of porosity, but in terms of the systems and the human resources that we need to be able to ensure that we have effective border management system in place.
And prior to this engagement with the United States rep at the UN, you were up north, of course, in some of these rural communities and assessing the challenge for yourself. I recall the report the West Africa Center for Counter-Extremism issued earlier this year, talking about how porous, the borders are up north. What's your latest assessment, and how do you relate that to the activities of the Wagner forces, which the president says, according to intelligence, is hovering somewhere around northern borders?
Well, so far what we know is that the activities of the Wagner forces are still very centrally based in Burkina Faso. We don't have any information or evidence of their presence close to our borders, in the physical sense of it. But there are several, issues. You ask about the issues in the north. Yes, of course, I just came back from the north, and we are assessing and working on several things in there. And we are increasingly concerned by several things. The issues of unresolved conflicts dotted all over that space, especially in communities that are closer to the border areas. We're seeing serious issues of guns in the system. Guns are very, very prevalent in many parts of the north, northeast, and the upper east region in particular. And so these issues are very, very serious issues that we need to deal with. We're seeing issues of pervasive patronizing of, drugs, particular tramadol. Yeah. Tramadol is in huge use in many parts of the north.
And in fact, there's a report that will just point out that to us in a short moment from now. But as we wrap up,
you can land there's on that point. There's a big issue of marginalization that I want to sound as loud as I can. Right. In terms of its capacity to influence violent extremism internally and externally, there are very, very serious issues of marginalization along ethnic lines. And that, focuses specifically on the Fulbe community. The Fulani community is significantly persecuted. They use that word, persecuted, within the local space in many parts of the north, especially the upper east region, parts of some, northern region and eastern part of the country. It's a very, very big issue that we need to elevate to national level to ensure that we give it the needed attention that we need to do. And we're saying this because we are looking at 6-7 years ago, things like this were happening in some parts of the Sahel, and eventually they were weaponized and used as a precept for violent extremism, and we need to take that very seriously.
And Muka, we need to go, but just before we go, all of this is happening at a time when Accra is playing host to this crucial ministerial conference on peacekeeping. The argument is, let's also focus on peace building. Your take on that before we wrap up?
Yes, I think it's incredible that Ghana has had this opportunity to hold this ministerial meeting here. This is the first time, we're having that here, and it's huge. It's huge because it's a testament of Ghana's situation in terms of our image as a peaceful and stable country. And so it's important that, we feel honored that we have this opportunity. But what does it mean for us? We're just actually ending, I think, in a year of our membership of the Security Council, and this is a huge thing for us. I think what we're looking at is the opportunity to enhance Ghana's image as a leader, regional leader, continental leader for peace and security. But also, how do we fix the UN system, the UN Security Council, in terms of its capacity to respond to the security situations that we're dealing with? The UN mission in Mali, of course, has been sent away. And there's a huge failure for the United Nations. And it's a huge failure for all, multilateralism in terms of how we deal with security. And this conference is looking to, feature discussions in terms of how do we fix it. And not just Africa. Globally, there are very serious issues that undermine the capacity of the UN Security Council, in terms of its ability to handle them. And it's a great thing that we should talk about.
I'm happy that the conversations are starting. Once the fallouts come up, definitely we'll be sure to discuss them. But congratulations as well on hosting a successful conversation today. But Mukhtar was earlier raising the concerns about illicit drug trade. Well, let's stay in the West Africa sub-region where the use and trafficking of various drugs persistently present some significant threats to public health and safety. Beyond the illegal cultivation of marijuana, we know of the manufacturing and production of some drugs in other countries in the ECOWAS region. That is remaining central destination in terms of market and also a pivotal trafficking zone. This is also contained in a report from the West African Epidemiology Network on Drug Use, WENDU, from the ECOWAS member states. And we know that marijuana and also issues relating to the proliferation of some new psychoactive substances are coming up strongly. There's more in this report.
The use and trafficking of various drugs persistently presents significant threats to public health and safety. Beyond illegal cultivation, manufacturing and production of drugs, countries in ECOWAS region remain a central destination market and a pivotal trafficking zone. Cocaine, heroin, pharmaceuticals, marijuana and synthetic opioids like tramadol, as well as precursor chemicals and unregulated substances are all features which are prominent amongst the concerns in this complex and evolving landscape. The report from the West African Epidemiology Network on Drug Use, WENDU, is highlighting the proliferation of new psychoactive substances and counterfeit medicines which pose significant challenges to the oversight of illicit drug trafficking and the regulation of internationally controlled substances. Consequently, drug use has witnessed a significant surge in the region, as indicated by the sharp increase in the number of individuals seeking treatment for drug-related disorders. Nonetheless, the availability of drug prevention and treatment services remain notably insufficient within the sub-region. As part of moves to gather feedback and to draw on stakeholder strength, brought together experts and government representatives to Accra for a dialogue on the new report by the West African Epidemiology Network on Drug Use.
The WENDU report serves as a compass guiding through the complex landscape of drug-related issues in West Africa. It provides a comprehensive overview of the evolving patterns in drug supply and usage, empowering us to make informed decisions and implement effective strategies. The report also highlights and discusses essential and prominent results from the 2020-2022 WENDU data for programming, policy, and advocacy to address social and human issues that seeks to address the economic consequences of substance abuse and illicit drug trafficking in West Africa.
The report which has been launched today, the WENDU report, the West Africa Epidemiology Network, is the one providing the different data, and the policy brief which has been elaborated, it will be the one who indicates and provides the recommendations on the different gaps which have been elaborated. So let's read the report that today has been launched in order to identify how the different members of the ECOWAS will address the issues on both the drug use, the prevention, as the Director General of the Narcotic Commission was highlighting.
So what steps can the West Africa sub-region take in response to the increasing and alarming rate of the illicit use of drugs in the West Africa sub-region? Dr. Daniel Amankwa is an epidemiologist with the Economic Community of West African States. He tells Joy News why it will be important for member states to take immediate action.
Dr. Daniel Amankwa, thank you for talking to Joy News. The sub-regional body ECOWAS is seeking to respond to the issues of trafficking, especially of illicit, drugs within the sub-region? It's become a challenge, a reason for which you're back home again, but on an official assignment, engaging with stakeholders across the sub-region to try and respond to this worrying trend. First of all, how crucial is this engagement taking place in Accra, and why would you describe this as timely to, responding to trafficking?
Yes, thank you very much. You are aware that the drug issues are really dynamic, sophisticated, all the adjectives that you can use. And we have a problem that has been lingering on for years. So we try to find innovative ways of tackling it. So this particular activities that we've had over the past 3 days is focusing on research. We don't want to go out and try something that we have not tested. So we have what we call the WENDU report, the West Africa Epidemiology Network on Drug Use Report, WENDU. The WENDU report, we collect data from our member states, all the 15 member states, plus Mauritania. And since 2016, we've been doing this, and then at a point, we launch it as a policy guide. So that is what we did the first day, and then the second day, we had other stakeholders also with their research, the research that they have done. They will present, and then we discuss it, and we pick the recommendations, and then see how we can align our activities to the recommendations.
I see, and we'll be touching on some of the recommendations that you're making shortly, but let's look at the trend and some of the findings you've made, ever since the engagement started here in Accra. When you talk about drug use, what's the scope and what's the extent to which you're overseeing or perhaps looking at the trend in terms of trafficking across the West Africa sub-region? Are you looking at generic drug use, or you're very specific on some of the items named in the report?
Yes. Let's do it this way.
Right.
Let's tackle the trafficking aspect,
right,
and then abuse aspect. Because the WENDU report has the first session talking about the trafficking, and then the second session talking about the abuse. So when we take the trafficking aspect, look at the drugs that are being seized. In fact, we are using the seizure as a kind of indicator to measure what is the trend, what is going on. So number one, this report has identified marijuana as the most trafficked drug in our sub-region. And it's not just traffic outside the region. Is cultivated here. We have a lot of marijuana farms in our member states. So the member states, in fact, all the member states, we can identify marijuana.
So be sure to watch a playback of that interaction with Dr. Amankwa later on the Joy News channel. But that's all we have for you here in this package of Connect Africa. I'm Blessed Sugan. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates on all of our stories for you.